I'm Carmen, and I never thought my life would become a battlefield of broken promises and shattered trust. Once, love was my sanctuary. Daniel and I built a world of whispered dreams under starlit skies, our laughter echoing through the years. But now, our home feels like a prison, the silence between us sharper than any blade. Every glance he avoids, every touch he withholds, cuts deeper, leaving me desperate to reclaim what we've lost. Last night, he led me into a shadowy den called the Obsidian Room, a place dripping with secrets and danger, promising a freedom I couldn't understand. What happened there changed everything, and I'm not sure if it will save us or destroy us forever. Picture this: a single, flickering street lamp casting a pale glow over a cracked sidewalk, the kind of light that seems to hold secrets in its shadows. That's where my mind wanders when I think about how everything started to slip away. My name is Carmen, and I'm 27, carrying the weight of a love story that's been unraveling thread by thread. I've known Daniel since we were just kids, two scrawny 7-year-olds with scraped knees and wild dreams, meeting on a playground where the swings creaked louder than our laughter. By 10, we were glued at the hip, sharing secrets no one else could touch. And by 20, we stood under a cheap rented archway, saying "I do," with voices trembling from nerves and hope. Back then, love was a living thing, electric, almost too big to hold. I can still feel the heat of his stolen glances in the school hallway, the way my heart raced when his shoulder brushed mine. I remember the nights we'd sneak out, lying under a blanket of stars, whispering about a future we swore we'd build together. Our wedding day was a blur of white lace and nervous giggles, his hands steadying mine as we promised forever, surrounded by family who clapped too loud and cried even louder. But promises, I've learned, can grow heavy over time. Somewhere along the way, over the past year, I started folding into myself, my voice quieter, my thoughts louder. I've watched Daniel change too, his once warm hazel eyes now skimming past me like I'm a stranger in our own home. He used to look at me like I was the only thing that mattered. Now, I'm lucky if I catch a fleeting glance before he turns away. It's in the small things, the tiny fractures I can't ignore. At dinner, his hand no longer reaches for mine across the table, leaving the space between us cold and untouched. Our conversations, once endless and tangled with laughter, have shrunk to the bare minimum. Did you pay the electric bill? Are we out of milk? What time will you be home? I live in a small, tidy apartment in a quiet suburb just outside the city, a place that used to feel like our sanctuary, with its soft beige walls and the little window herb garden I tended so carefully. Now, it's a cage, every corner holding echoes of what we used to be. I'm a freelance graphic designer working from home, which sounded freeing at first, but has only deepened my isolation. My days are spent hunched over a laptop, lost in pixels and deadlines, while the silence of the apartment presses in. Daniel works as a mid-level manager at a local hardware chain, a job that's always kept him busy, but lately his hours stretch later and later. He calls them meetings, and I've stopped asking for details, stopped probing the excuses that hang in the air like smoke. There's a tension between us now, a silent question neither of us dares to voice. What happened to us? I'm sitting here on a mundane Tuesday evening, the kind of night that usually slips by without a second thought, but tonight feels different somehow. The air in our small apartment is thick, heavy with all the things Daniel and I aren't saying. We're on opposite ends of our worn-out couch, the one we picked out together years ago at a second-hand shop, back when every choice felt like a shared adventure. Now, the fraying fabric under my fingers feels like a map of our unraveling. Rough patches where we've sat too long in silence, threads pulling loose like the connection between us. The hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen is a constant drone, a reminder of how quiet we've become. On the TV, some cooking show drones on, about perfecting a soufflé, but neither of us is really watching. I steal a glance at Daniel, noticing the way his jaw tightens every time I shift a little closer, as if my nearness is something to brace against. It stings, that tiny rejection, and I don't know whether to push through the wall between us or retreat further into myself. Then, out of nowhere, he speaks. His voice is low, rough around the edges, carrying a tone I can't quite pin down. Maybe irony, maybe a challenge. "There's this private event downtown tonight at a place called the Obsidian Room. I think we should go." I blink, caught off guard. The Obsidian Room? I've never heard of it, and we're hardly the type for exclusive clubs or late-night escapades. Our idea of a big night out these days is grabbing takeout and arguing over what movie to stream. My mind races with questions. Is this his way of trying to bridge the gap between us? A desperate attempt to reconnect, or something else entirely? I open my mouth to ask, but before I can, he adds, "Let's see how you act when given freedom." The way he says freedom sends a shiver through me. It's not just a word. It's loaded, dripping with a meaning I can't grasp, like a key to a door I'm not sure I want to open. My stomach twists, part curiosity, part unease, but I nod. "Okay," I say, my voice smaller than I mean it to be. I agree not because I'm excited, but because I need to know what's behind that word, what's behind his eyes when he looks at me now. The next day drags on with a nervous energy I can't shake. I spend too long standing in front of my closet, finally pulling out a simple black dress that clings to my frame in a way that feels both bold and vulnerable. I catch my reflection in the mirror, smoothing the fabric over my hips, wondering if Daniel will even notice. My hands tremble as I apply a touch of makeup, just enough to feel like I'm armoring myself for whatever this night holds. By the time evening rolls around, I'm a bundle of anticipation and dread. The drive to downtown is a blur of streetlights and muted conversation, the tension between Daniel and me a palpable thing in the confined space of the car. My heart thuds as we pull up to a nondescript building, its facade unremarkable except for a single black door with no sign, no hint of what lies beyond. We step out, and the cool night air does little to ease the heat of my nerves. Daniel leads the way, his stride purposeful, and I follow, my heels clicking against the pavement, each step echoing like a countdown to something I can't predict. When we enter the Obsidian Room, I'm immediately struck by the oppressive atmosphere. The walls are a deep, endless black, not just painted, but seeming to swallow the light itself, leaving no reflection, no escape for the eye. Heavy velvet curtains, the color of midnight, drape over unseen windows, shutting out the world beyond as if it no longer exists. Warm amber lamps are scattered sparingly, their glow casting long, distorted shadows that creep across the floor like living things. The air feels dense, almost suffocating, carrying a faint scent of aged wood and something muskier, something I can't place. It presses against my skin, making every breath feel like a conscious effort. My eyes dart around, taking in the space, and that's when I notice them. A small group of 5 men, all older, in their 40s or 50s, standing near the far end of the room. They're dressed in tailored suits, each one exuding a quiet, predatory confidence that makes my skin prickle. I don't know their names, and I never will, so my mind assigns them labels based on fleeting impressions. Leader, with his sharp cheekbones and piercing gaze. Tall one, looming over the others with a deliberate slowness. Quiet one, barely moving. His presence a silent weight. Smirker, with a cruel twist to his lips. And Watcher, whose eyes seem to catalog every detail of me from across the room. My unease grows, a tight knot in my chest, as Leader steps forward, his movements smooth and calculated. He approaches Daniel and me, his eyes locking onto mine for a moment before shifting to Daniel. His voice is low, almost a purr, but there's a cold edge to it that cuts through the thick air. He has to watch, until the end. The words land like a stone in my stomach, heavy and chilling. I flinch, my body reacting before my mind can catch up, but Daniel, he doesn't even blink. He just nods, his face a mask I can't read, and walks to a wooden chair positioned in the center of the room, its stark simplicity making it look like a throne of judgment. He sits, his posture rigid, his hands resting on the armrests as if bracing himself for something inevitable. I'm frozen, my mind racing with questions I can't voice. I lean toward him, my voice barely a whisper, trembling with confusion. What's happening? His response is cryptic, his tone flat but laced with something darker, something I can't decipher. If you're capable of this, do it, but I need to see. The words hang between us, sharp and enigmatic, and before I can press him further, Leader is beside me again. His touch is sudden, his fingers cold against my cheek, then sliding to my shoulder with a possessiveness that makes my breath hitch. He guides me away from Daniel, his grip firm but not forceful, as if he knows I won't resist. Tall One joins us, his presence towering, his movements slow and deliberate, almost like a ritualistic dance. The others close in too, their proximity suffocating, their hands cautious but insistent, brushing against me in ways that make my skin crawl and my heart pound all at once. I glance at Daniel, desperate for some sign, some reaction, but his face is a storm of shifting emotions, confusion at first, then a burning, silent anger that sears into me. His eyes don't leave me, not for a second, and under that gaze, something in me fractures. What happens next feels like a descent, a surrender I didn't plan but can't stop. I let myself be drawn into their circle, betraying Daniel. The silence that falls over the obsidian room after it's all over is heavier than anything I've ever felt. It's like the air itself is holding its breath, thick with the aftermath of what just happened. The men, Leader, Tall One, Quiet One, Smirker, and Watcher, step back, retreating to the edges of the room, their presence fading into a distant hum, like static I can barely hear over the pounding in my chest. My focus narrows, sharpens, until there's nothing and no one but Daniel. He's still in that wooden chair, a solitary figure in the center of this dark, suffocating space, and I can't look away from him, even if I wanted to. My legs feel like they're made of sand, unsteady and crumbling beneath me as I take a slow, deliberate step toward him. Each movement is a battle, my black dress wrinkled and out of place, clinging to me in a way that feels wrong now, like a costume I never should have worn. The weight of what I've done settles into my chest, a cold, unyielding stone that presses harder with every breath I take. I can't escape it, can't push it away, and part of me doesn't even want to try. As I get closer, I see every detail of Daniel's face, etched into my mind like a photograph I'll never be able to tear up. His jaw is clenched so tight I can almost hear the grind of his teeth, a muscle twitching just beneath the skin. The veins in his neck pulse, visible even in the dim amber light, a silent testament to the storm raging inside him. His hands grip the arms of the chair with such force that his knuckles are white, the skin stretched taut over bone, as if he's holding on to keep himself from breaking apart. I stop just a few feet away, close enough to feel the heat of his anger radiating toward me, but far enough that I can't reach out, can't touch him, even though every part of me aches to. My throat is raw, scraped from the inside out, and when I finally speak, my voice is barely above a whisper, fragile and trembling with everything I've held back for so long. This was about you. I wanted you to see me again. The words spill out, jagged and broken, like pieces of glass I can't put back together. I try to explain, though my thoughts are a tangled mess, tripping over each other in their rush to be heard. I felt invisible, Daniel. In our marriage, in our home, I've been disappearing, and you didn't even notice. I thought if I did something this extreme, something you couldn't ignore, it might shock you into feeling something for me. Anything, even if it was anger, even if it was pain. My voice cracks on that last word, and I have to swallow hard to keep from falling apart right there in front of him. I watch his eyes, searching for something, anything, to hold on to. There's a flicker there, a storm of emotions passing through in an instant. Disgust, sharp and cutting, like a blade. Hurt, deep and raw, pooling in the hazel depths I used to know so well. And maybe, just maybe, a trace of understanding, a fleeting shadow that disappears before I can grasp it. But then his face hardens, and when he speaks, his voice is ice, each word a precise, deliberate strike. I saw, and now I can't unsee it. Those words slice through me, sharper than anything I've ever felt, cutting straight to the core of who I am. There's a finality in his tone, a door slamming shut between us, and I feel the ground shift beneath me, like I'm standing on the edge of a cliff with nowhere to go but down. He stands, the movement abrupt, the chair scraping against the floor with a sound that grates on my already frayed nerves. He doesn't look at me, not even a glance, as he turns and walks toward the door. His shoulders squared, his steps measured, like he's already leaving me behind. I follow, my body moving on instinct, though every step feels heavier. Then the week after that night at the Obsidian Room felt like a slow, torturous unraveling, each day stretching into an eternity of regret and silence. I'm Carmen, and I've been carrying the weight of my choices like a stone in my chest, one that grows heavier with every passing hour. Our apartment, once a place of warmth with its soft beige walls and little herb garden by the window, turned into a suffocating prison. Daniel took to sleeping on the couch, his back turned to me, the space between us a chasm I couldn't cross. I'd lie in our bedroom, staring at the ceiling, the darkness pressing down as my mind replayed every moment of that night, every touch, every glance, every mistake. I could still see the storm in his hazel eyes, the way they burned with a pain I'd caused, a pain I couldn't take back. Sleep became a stranger, replaced by endless loops of what-ifs and should-haves that clawed at me in the quiet. The small, painful moments cut the deepest. One morning, I stumbled into the kitchen, bleary-eyed and hollow, only to find his wedding ring sitting on the counter, untouched, like a silent accusation. It glinted under the harsh fluorescent light, a tiny circle of gold that once meant everything, now abandoned. My breath caught, my fingers hovering over it, but I couldn't bring myself to touch it, as if doing so would make the fracture between us even more real. Another day, I watched him leave for work, his shoulders hunched as if carrying an invisible burden, not a single word exchanged between us. The door clicked shut, and the silence that followed was deafening, a void that swallowed every hope I'd clung to. I tried to reach out, to break through the wall he'd built, but every attempt was met with nothing. I'd start to speak, my voice trembling with desperation. "Daniel, can we just talk?" But he'd turn away, his expression blank, leaving my words to fall into the empty air. Each day dragged on like this, a relentless cycle of avoidance and ache, until exactly 7 days after that fateful night, I came home from a grocery run, my arms laden with bags I barely cared about. The apartment was eerily still as I stepped inside, the kind of quiet that feels like it's hiding something. I set the bags down on the counter, my eyes catching on a manila envelope resting on the dining table, stark against the worn wood. My heart stuttered, a cold dread creeping up my spine as I noticed Daniel sitting there, his posture rigid, his face a mask of cold resolve. He didn't look at me, not directly, his gaze fixed somewhere beyond, as if I were already a ghost in his life. I approached slowly, each step heavier than the last, my hands trembling as I reached for the envelope. The paper felt rough against my fingertips, and as I opened it, the contents spilled out like a verdict I couldn't escape. Divorce papers? Neatly typed, his signature already scrawled at the bottom in sharp, unyielding ink. My breath hitched, a hollow ache blooming in my chest, spreading until it consumed every part of me. I looked up at him, searching for something, anything in his expression, but there was nothing to find, just an emptiness that mirrored my own. His voice broke the silence, low and devoid of any warmth, each word a deliberate cut. "You wanted the truth. Here it is." The finality in his tone struck me like a physical blow, leaving me reeling, words caught in my throat as I tried to respond. "Daniel, please, I didn't mean for it to come to this. I was trying to—" But he cut me off, standing abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor with a harsh sound that echoed in the stillness. "I'm staying at a friend's place until it's finalized," he said, his voice flat, his back already turned as he moved toward the door. I stood there, frozen, the papers clutched in my shaking hands, watching him walk away, the distance between us growing with every step until the door closed behind him, leaving me alone in a silence louder than any scream. The weeks following the moment I held those divorce papers in my trembling hands felt like wading through a fog so thick I could barely see my own thoughts. I'm Carmen, and I've been trying to piece together what's left of me after everything shattered. The process of separation was mechanical, almost clinical, as if I were a bystander in my own life. I spent hours packing Daniel's things into cardboard boxes, each item a memory I had to fold away. His favorite faded sweatshirt, the coffee mug with the chipped handle he always used, the little notebook where he'd jot down random ideas. My hands moved on autopilot, taping up the boxes with a dull rhythm, while my mind replayed every misstep that led us here. Signing my name on the dotted line of those legal documents was like carving a piece of myself out. The pen scratched against the paper, each stroke a quiet goodbye to the life we'd built. And then, the day he moved out, I stood by the window, watching him load the last box into his car. He didn't look back, not once, as he drove off, the taillights disappearing into the gray afternoon. That finality hollowed me out, leaving a void I didn't know how to fill. Now, the apartment is a different kind of empty. It's not just the absence of his things, the missing coat on the rack, the empty side of the closet, but the silence that's taken root. It's both a relief and a torment, this quiet. There are no more tense silences between us, no more unspoken words hanging heavy in the air. But there's also no laughter, no casual chatter, no sound of his footsteps coming home. I catch myself sometimes, late at night, pausing by the door, ears straining for the familiar jingle of his keys, only to remember he's not coming back. The beige walls seem duller now, the little herb garden by the window wilting despite my half-hearted attempts to water it. I wander through the rooms, tracing the ghosts of our past. Here's where we'd argue over silly things like whose turn it was to do the dishes. There's where we'd collapse on the couch after a long day, tangled up in each other. Now it's just me, and the weight of that solitude presses down harder than I expected. I've had a lot of time to think about what happened at the Obsidian Room, to turn it over in my mind like a jagged stone I can't let go of. And the truth is, I don't fully regret what I did that night. Not entirely. It was a desperate act, a raw, reckless attempt to reclaim something I felt slipping away, to force Daniel to see me, to really look at me, even if it was through a lens of pain. I wanted to shatter the numbness that had settled over us, to break through the walls we'd built. That night, in that suffocating space with its black walls and amber shadows, everything was stripped bare. It wasn't just about the act itself, the moment I let myself be pulled into something so far beyond our boundaries. It was about the truth it exposed, the cracks in our foundation we'd both ignored for too long. We weren't just drifting, we were broken. And I think deep down, we both knew it. But seeing it laid out like that, in the harsh light of his gaze, made it impossible to pretend anymore. Yet, there's a part of me that aches with regret, not for what I did, but for how it landed, for the way it tore through Daniel in a way I didn't anticipate. I keep asking myself if I misjudged him, if I underestimated how deep the hurt would cut. Did I assume too much, thinking he could withstand the rawness of that moment, that he'd fight for us through the wreckage? Or was I selfish, believing that pain could somehow rebuild love, that it could stitch us back together stronger than before? I see his face in my mind, the way his eyes burned with a mix of disgust and betrayal, and I wonder if I pushed him too far, if I broke something in him that can't be mended. Maybe I was chasing a version of us that only existed in our memories, a past we couldn't reclaim. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.